Muslims are taught that the Quran is a perfect and complete, uncorrupted book. But did you know that early Islamic leaders like Uthman and Ibn Masud did not agree on which chapters should be part of the Quran? If you're a Muslim, you probably never heard this story before. Today we're going to talk about the Quran according to Ibn Masud. And why is that important? Well, I mean, just on the surface, the Quran that we have in our hand today is allegedly 114 chapters. You'll be surprised to see now that when it came to Ibn Masud, his Quran did not really match the Quran that we have in our hands today. Why would that be important? Because Ibn Masud also is a big deal when it comes to how the Prophet endorsed him, and the fact that he was one of the scribes of the Prophet, and he has a huge following in his days. With me, of course, here, as always, to unpack all of that is our dear brother, Rob Christian. Rob, welcome back, brother.
Thank you, dear brother. Let us talk about Ibn Mas'ud and his own personal Quran. Ibn Mas'ud actually did not think highly of today's Quran if the Muslims claim that that's the Quran of Zayd ibn Thabit, as a claim, but they cannot prove it, because I challenge any sheikh with a big beard or a smaller beard to prove to us that today's Quran is the Quran of Uthman, as they are claiming. Show us one manuscript that agrees with today's Quran that goes back to Uthman from the 7th century and that is complete. But it's very important to talk about Ibn Mas'ud because Muhammad said, go to 4 regarding the recitation of the Quran. And he mentioned Ibn Mas'ud as the first trustworthy person to go to. So the question is, the million-dollar question, why would Muslims not go to Ibn Mas'ud? Because Ibn Mas'ud had 111 chapters, yet today's Quran has 114 chapters. So let's see what Ibn Mas'ud used to say about today's Quran. And here, let me show you a couple of slides. On top, you see 2 references, Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, volume 2, page 25, and Ad-Durr al-Manthur by As-Suyuti, volume 1, page 106. If we scroll down, we see the following information. According to the son of the second Caliph Umar, Ibn al-Khattab, right, the son of the Caliph Umar of the second Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the present text of the Quran is incomplete since much of it has disappeared. Abdullah bin Umar reportedly said, let none of you say, I've got the whole of the Quran. How does he know what all of it is? Much of the Quran has gone. Imagine. So the Quran, as the Muslims have it today, is certainly not the complete Quran from the time of Muhammad. Let any Muslim then say instead, I've got what has survived. This is really damaging. And this is all over the Islamic books. If we continue, like we mentioned, however, Ibn Mas'ud does not think highly of today's Quran, the one collected by Zayd ibn Thabit. In comparing himself to Zayd ibn Thabit, he says, who Ibn Mas'ud said, the people have been guilty of deceit in the reading of the Quran, and he's talking about Zayd ibn Thabit. So basically he calls the Quran of Zayd and Uthman bunch of basically a Quran that is full of deception. Ibn Mas'ud continues saying, I like it better to read according to the recitation of him, meaning the Prophet of Islam, whom I love more than that of Zayd ibn Thabit. By him besides whom there is no God, I learned more than 70 surahs from the lips, directly from the lips of the Messenger of Allah, the Apostle of Allah. May Allah bless him. While Zayd ibn Thabit was a young boy, a youth, having 2 locks and playing with the youth. And the source is in the bottom. Ibn Sa'd, Kitab al-Tabaqat, Al-Kabir, volume 2, page 444. So as you see, Ibn Mas'ud did not like the Quran of Uthman or, let's say, Zayd ibn Thabit. He did not agree with it. And actually, he did not want to give his own personal mushaf, his own personal Quran, to be burned by Uthman much later. Let us continue bringing down the hammer on the Quran of today, basically. Further evidence of Ibn Mas'ud rejecting Surah Al-Fatiha. According to Ibn Mas'ud, Surah Al-Fatiha, the very first chapter of the Quran, should not be part of the Quran. We read in Tafsir Al-Kabir the following. In some of the various, or in some of the previous books, it is written that Ibn Mas'ud would reject Surah Al-Fatiha and Al-Mu'awwadhatayn, basically chapter 113 and chapter 114, the last two chapters of the Quran, as being part of the Quran. So if we do some calculation, according to Ibn Mas'ud, the Surah Al-Fatiha, the first chapter, and the last two chapters of the Quran should not have been part of the Quran. And the references are in the bottom. And look how many books are reporting this very story. Brother, do you want to add something on top of this?
Yes, I want to add something that people will find very interesting. What my brother is saying, not only Ibn Mas'ud had different number of chapters, but believe it or not, even in his own Quran, he has different ways of reading many of these passages. How do I know this? Well, his readings were collected among many other readings, and I'm going to have right here in front of me, there is a source that I recommend everybody to have. I think it's available also online these days. It's called Materials for the History of the Text of the Quran, the Old Codices. The Old Codices. Look what it says. The author, or the editor, Arthur Jeffrey, this is what he says. He says, the Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud, which is a very famous one, by the way, he adapted, basically, in this book that I'm reading the title from, he adapted from Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud together with a collection of the variant readings from who? The codices of Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay, Ali, Ibn Abbas, Anas, Abu Musa, and other early Quranic authorities which present a type of the text anterior, different to that of the canonical text of Uthman. You see what I mean? His own readings actually even differs than the Hafs reading that is in our hand right now.
Exactly. That's truly damaging. And we continue reading that Al-Haythami in his book, very famous book in the Arab Muslim world. Al-Haythami records in Majma' al-Zawad wa Manba' al-Fawaid, volume 7, page 311, and hadith number 11,562. And the reference you can find in the bottom of the screen. Abdurrahman bin Yazid said, Abdullah, meaning Abdullah bin Mas'ud, used to erase Al-Mu'awwadhatayn, meaning chapter 113 of the Quran and chapter 114 of today's Quran, from his own personal copies of the Quran. And he used to say, and this is damaging, it's not part of the book of Allah. Wow. And this is the number one guy that Muhammad said,
that's right,
go to him regarding the recitation of the Quran.
That's right. I mean, here is the funny part about this, by the way. Do you know that Muslims will tell you the reason why there is another another scribe, Ubay, that we mentioned his name, Ubay ibn Ka'b. He has 116 actually, right? So Muslims will say, no. The last two chapters of Ubay are not considered really chapters. They're just basically prayers and meditations. Really? Well, that's exactly what Ibn Mas'ud was saying about the chapter 112 and 113. I should say 113 and 114. So what's the difference?
Exactly. This is damaging. And here is more to make it complete. We find more information and let us read it. The narrator in this hadith is Abdullah ibn Abbas from Shu'aib al-Arnaut, saying, which of the two readings was the last? So which of the two readings was the last reading that the Quraysh, that the Sahaba and even Muhammad used to read before his death? Which of the two readings was the last? The reading of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or the reading of Zayd ibn Thabit, as the Muslims claim today, is the Quran of today? We said the recitation of Zayd. He said, no, that's wrong. The Messenger of Allah used to present the Quran to Jibreel, the angel Jibreel supposedly, once every year. And when he was in the year in which he died, so in the final year, in the last year that Muhammad would die, it was presented to him twice. And the last recitation was that of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Mm-hmm. Wow. And this hadith is, as you see, highly trustworthy, highly sahih. The chain of narration is authentic.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this proves, brother, that there were a lot of political factors involved in deciding which readings. So Uthman used his power, his political influence, and determined that his own desired reading will trump what this hadith is saying.
Exactly. So why would the Muslims not follow the reading of Ibn Mas'ud? Because that was the final reading of the Prophet of himself. And you see the hadith is very authentic. And we see people like Abdullah ibn Abbas who are actually confirming that the last reading should have been Ibn Mas'ud. So why did Uthman not go to Ibn Mas'ud? What did Uthman not listen to Ibn Mas'ud? Yet he chose a very young guy, in this case, Zayd ibn Thabit. He chose, of course, family over the more trustworthy Sahaba. So it was basically a political choice, right? And Uthman really made really poor choices. So today's Quran should have been 111 chapters, not 114 chapters.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
I mean, again, you have someone who was writing down from the Prophet, allegedly, okay? I mean, let's take that story at face value. He was writing down the revelation from the Prophet. He has a different number of chapters. He was recommended by the Prophet to go to if you have any questions about the Quran. What did Uthman do? He threw him literally in the garbage and burned his basically material. At least he thought he burned his material, because we were able to trace it back again. Arthur Jeffrey did an excellent job of tracing it from quotations and commentaries and other places. And you can use, like, you look at Al-Tabari, Az-Zamakhshari, others, they will say, oh, Ibn Mas'ud used to read it this way. Ubay used to read it that way. So it's still there. It survived. But what I'm saying is, why are you, my Muslim friends, not paying attention to the original, right? I mean, you can say Ibn Mas'ud's reading is considered to be among the original readings. But no, you discounted all of that and you followed what Uthman says. That's why it's called the Uthmanic Rasm. So you're not following the Quran of Allah, you're following the Quran of Uthman. And that's a man-made, my friends. Last words for you, brother.
Yeah, we will continue bringing more proof that the Quran is highly corrupted in the next videos. Thank you and God bless.
God bless you too, brother, and God bless you, our viewers. Until next episode, have a blessed day.